Pricing metrics. A pricing metric is anything that you price per. So price per user, price per API call, and so forth. Pricing metrics are a core component of most SaaS pricing models, especially the ones that do well. And the reason is that a pricing metric allows your pricing to scale with the value that you deliver to your customer. So back in the day, most software was sold per user or on a seat-based license where you priced per user. So the user was the metric. Today, we see a lot of different infrastructure-related software sold per API call or per CPU usage and so forth. So picking a good metric is usually a core component of attaining pricing market fit. So I wanted to, in this short video series, go over the 4 aspects of pricing metrics and how to evaluate pricing metrics and pick a good one. The 4 aspects are operational viability, value, expectation to pay, and metric density. Okay, so here we go. Operational viability of a pricing metric simply means that you can execute on the pricing metric that you have in mind. So it breaks down into 2 components. 1, that you can actually measure it, and 2, that you can invoice it. So let's do the measurement first. That you can measure a pricing metric simply means that 1, you can actually technically measure this, that is not something fluffy. So that means that the metric is non-arbitrary, it's technically well-defined, and you have access to actually measure whatever it is that you're trying to measure. Let me give you an example. I was doing a pricing model for a software solution that does subscription management for newspapers. And we're saying, okay, we're going to do a price per subscriber. So a newspaper has a subscriber and we're going to charge that. So if a newspaper has 100,000 subscribers, we'll charge them $1 each a month, so $100,000. Now, does it matter if the subscriber is a print subscriber or only has access to the online newspaper? Maybe. What if they have access to both? Are there then 2 subscribers? So are we now counting subscribers or subscriptions? What if the subscriber is a family where they have access through 5 different logins in a family subscription? What about that? What if the subscriber has a free subscription to the newspaper, which can happen, and so forth? What if the subscriber is part of a company that gives access to all its employees? Is it then one company that is a subscriber, but the 5,000 employees are not subscribers? Okay, so you see the issue is that we think that we have something very well defined if we're saying a subscriber, because we have something in mind when we're saying that. But really, when we dig into the actual case, suddenly it is not that clear. And we need to define it more clearly. Essentially, we need to define it so that a computer can count it, and then also that it is non-arbitrary in the sense that we can show it to the customer and they will agree that it is a good way to define whatever it is that we're pricing by. So we need to be able to show it to the newspapers and say, we define a subscriber as any person who has a user login that is in some way paid. That was the definition that we arrived at in this particular case. So all the free subscribers didn't count, all the churn subscribers didn't count, but anyone that had access to read the newspaper, physical or online, through some form of paid format was counted as a subscriber. Okay, so the pricing metric needs to be defined much more technically than usually is the case if we're just sort of saying we are pricing per subscriber, and likely in your case too. Okay, that is one part of can you measure it. The other part of can you measure it is actually, are you allowed to measure it? So are there compliance issues? Are there GDPR issues? Are there other legal issues where you could measure it, you could technically define it in a non-arbitrary way, you're just not allowed to. So maybe you're not allowed to track the usage of people in a certain way and so forth. So, check with your legal department. So, but that's the first part. Can you actually measure it? The second part of operational viability is, can you invoice it? Which, if you can track it, good first step. But second step is, can you actually get that data in, attach it to a specific customer account, and then turn it into a billing or an invoicing flow in a timely manner back to that customer? Say, well, last month you had, you logged in 9,712 times. So we're going to charge you $9,712 for that usage. So time is often an aspect here, meaning that maybe you can measure it, but maybe you can't measure it in a timely manner. So this can often be the case, for example, if you have some form of an on-prem software where you want to price per some sort of metric, but you don't necessarily have access to the installation with the customer in a real-time fashion. So this can mean that some of the different pricing metrics that you would have in play are not actually viable. So let me give you an example. I helped an enterprise software solution that sells asset management software to the defense industry. So their software is used by most of the governments in the world to handle their intelligence operations and assets related to that. Obviously, these types of customers are not very happy with you having access to their system. So even though you get to sell them a software solution, they're not giving you a lot of information back. So we needed to come up with something that was measurable in a way where we would have access to actually build that flow. So in this particular case, we set up a license server. They would call the license server. The license server would send back an encrypted key, which would allow them to unlock certain usage parameters and use the software. Okay, so we have these two aspects of operational viability, which is it measurable, technically well-defined in a non-arbitrary manner? And then also, can we actually invoice it in a billing flow? So the second part of can you invoice it is actually, can you do an audit trail, which is a really good asset test, right? So maybe you can measure something and you can put it into a billing flow and you can send an invoice to a customer, but the customer has to be able to come back and disagree, and you have a reasonably good argument about whether or not they actually have the usage or have the licenses that you're billing them for. So if they come back and say, well, your invoice says we had 1 million API calls, can you show them to us? You need to be able to pull up that record and show them the 1 million API calls that you're pricing them by, or the whatever else it is. So that is it for operational viability. It has two aspects. The first is, can we measure it? Meaning, can we technically do it? And second, are we allowed to do it from a compliance measure? And second, can we bill it? Meaning, do we actually get the information in a timely and structured manner to pull it through a billing flow? And two, can we track that billing flow so that we can actually do the audit trail if necessary? So if you're, and this is black and white, if your pricing metric, whatever it is that you're proposing, doesn't meet all these criteria in like a hands down, of course it does matter, don't work with it. So you're going to have 50 to 100 potentially ideas, some of them variations on the same theme for a pricing metric. Get all of them down and just tag them through the system. Is it operationally viable? Can we measure it? Are we allowed to? Could we bill it? Can we audit it? If it doesn't flag green on all of these, just get rid of it and work with the rest. So in the next video, I'm going to talk a little bit about how you then evaluate the remaining pricing metrics that you have in terms of the value that they bring to the customer's expectation to pay or sense of fairness around these pricing metrics, and finally, a more technical concept called metric density, which we're going to get into. So, but that's in upcoming videos. I hope you enjoyed this one. It's a part that people often miss when they start to do pricing design, but operational viability has to be the starting point for any pricing metric. All right, take care.